I'm not allowed to give exact details, but one of my worst calls was from a little boy. I think he was 5. He was hiding in his closet because his dad was drunk and beating the ever-loving shit out of his mom. He lived in a very rural area, and it was about an hour drive from the nearest police detachment. I stayed on the phone with him for almost 45 minutes, trying to keep him calm. You literally talk about anything that pops into your head. The weather, favorite TV shows, what his favorite toys are. All the while, you can plainly hear a woman screaming and crying in the background. And as the call goes on, you can still hear the guy beating her, but her screams turn into grunts and moans. You can't tune it out because you are constantly typing what you hear. Any details you can get from background noise are valuable to the officers attending. Anyway, the members arrived, arrested the piece of shit, and I hung up once the kid was safe. And then the phone rang again, because there is no stopping. There's no time to process what had just happened, and honestly, it's probably for the best. A lot of the time you don't find out the outcome of the call because, as I said, there's always more phones ringing.
Got a call from a guy saying he was sitting in his car with a shotgun and was going to kill himself. He seemed very calm. I could tell in his voice that he had made up his mind. And this wasn't a cry for help like most of the other suicide calls I received. He told me he was at one of our train stations, but wouldn't tell me which one. So while I had officers out looking for him, I made small talk with him about his family and sports. I even had him laugh a few times. After about 10 minutes of talking and me thinking I'd made progress, he finally says, "Well, it's been nice talking to you, but I gotta get going." He then proceeded to put the gun in his mouth and pull the trigger. I heard his death gurgles.
I had a guy who drowned his 2-year-old son. That fucked me up for a while because I was pregnant with my son at the time. I kept thinking how unfair that some child could be so terrified as the one person he trusted and loved was harming him. Not only that, but when you drown, you're conscious to the end. I still cry for that little boy some days.
A year into the job, in a pretty large town with woods all around, I got a call from a young man identified himself as 21. He said he went on a hike with his best friend. This is where it got weird. I asked for his location, and it was about 50 miles from the nearest trailhead, but not in the direction the trail moves. I asked him to tell me what the problem was and what services he needed when he burst into tears, saying one moment his friend was in front of him, the next he was gone. I dispatched the sheriff and was told neither man was ever found. It still freaks me out to this day.
We responded to an apartment building when the caretaker had called us. His initial report was that he went to check on a suite because water had been reported flooding into the hallway. He informed us that there was a deceased lady in the tub. He said he saw her and immediately backed out without touching anything. We entered the suite. It was filled with steam. The humidity had started peeling the paint off the walls in sheets. There was also the smell of cooked meat. Upon entering the bathroom, we found the supposed deceased seated in the tub, with the hot water running. From the looks of it, she had been there a while. The skin on her body, all the way from toes to sternum, had started separating. Much like the paint on the walls, it was bubbled and coming up in sheets. I checked for vitals while someone turned off the water and the others went to get a bag and radio for a can. When a body is badly decomposed, we put them in a sheet metal box. I almost shit my pants when I found signs of life. The lady had a pulse. She wasn't really responsive, but she was breathing shallow, had a heartbeat, and was looking at us. We had to get her out. We radioed for EMS and informed them we had a live patient with at least 80% burns. They were a few minutes out, so we started to get the patient ready for transport. I don't remember what we were doing when we noticed the water draining from the tub, but what we saw was her torso essentially degloving itself as the water receded. We immediately plugged the bathtub and continued working her. When EMS arrived, we had to transfer her to the stretcher. That's where things got ugly. We planned to gently lift her out of the tub and place her onto the stretcher. However, as soon as we touched her, Her skin was coming off in sheets. I remember saying, "Sorry ma'am, but we have to do this," as I picked up my section and came away with almost all of the skin I contacted stuck to my arms. That was the only time she made a sound. She probably couldn't feel it due to the nerve damage, but I'm pretty sure she knew she had lost almost all of her skin from the chest down. The water was still extremely hot, so we were also getting burned while doing this. We managed to get her onto the stretcher and EMS took her away. When the bathtub was drained, there was a sheet of skin stuck to the bottom. We had to scrape it off and bag it. I still can't eat certain chicken dishes because of this. We figured she was in the tub and the water got cool, so she turned it on with her toe. She must have had a stroke and could not turn it off again. Being an apartment, it had pretty much unlimited hot water, so that poor lady sat there for approximately 3 days cooking. She did not survive. We don't get a lot of follow-up calls, but I heard she passed away. Between a stroke and severe burns, it wasn't likely that she'd make it, but we treat every patient like they have a chance. The human body is a weird and wonderful thing. Sometimes people do make it through some pretty terrible things,